Hi, this is Peter Woolfolk. First, thank you so very much for being a listener to the Public Relations Review podcast. I would really appreciate your leaving a review of the podcast. Let me know what you think. To make it easy, you can go directly to the podcast website, and that is publicrelationsreviewpodcast.com. There, you can go directly to the review page to leave your review. So let me know what you think of the podcast. And again, thank you so very, very much for being a listener.
Welcome. This is the Public Relations Review podcast, a program to discuss the many facets of public relations with seasoned professionals, educators, authors, and others. Now, here is your host, Peter Woolfolk.
Welcome to the Public Relations Review podcast and to our listeners all across America and around the world. Now, Apple has ranked this podcast among the top 1% of podcasts worldwide. And recently, FeedSpot listed this podcast as number 13 on its top 70 best public relations podcasts in the United States. So thank you to all of our guests and listeners for your continued support. And if you enjoy the podcast, please leave a review. Question to my audience: is your organization empowering your staff with public relations and media AI strategy? How are you coping with the fast pace of change and new platforms in AI? As AI reshapes the landscape of media and public relations, professionals need practical skills to effectively leverage this technology. Media Co-Pilot's program gives participants hands-on experience with cutting-edge multiple AI tools to elevate their communication strategies, enhance real-time monitoring, and how to automate critical tasks. Their program is designed for PR professionals, media strategists, and content creators. It provides actionable insights and practical applications of AI to transform how you can successfully engage with your audience. So joining me today from the New York City area is Pete Paschal. He is the founder of Media Co-Pilot. He has been covering technology for more than 2 decades and has been following artificial intelligence since before Gmail was trying to complete your sentences. He was chief of staff at CoinDesk, where he led the publication's AI committee and wrote the company's guidelines for the use of generative AI. He's also held senior editorial positions at Red Ventures, Mashable, and NBC Universal. So, Pete, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Peter. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay. Now, needless to say, AI continues to grow and change. So let's begin by talking about what led you to establish the Media Co-Pilot AI.
So I'd been fresh off my job at CoinDesk, where I was leading strategy, and as you mentioned, I was part of their AI committee, actually led it and wrote their guidelines. So that was one of the most rewarding things I actually did for CoinDesk. And when it was time to figure out my next move, I knew I wanted to do something with AI, and I knew media. That's the thing I've been working in for my whole career. So I decided to combine those two things and essentially give myself a job to figure out how AI was going to affect the media, how it was going to change the media business and journalism as a result of that. And so I didn't quite know exactly what form that was going to take, but I knew doing a newsletter, the barrier to entry was low. So I launched that. I launched the Substack, and I was, determined to teach myself this stuff and pass on what I learned. And really shortly after that, some friends and colleagues started reaching out to me and say, "Hey, can you come in to my team and maybe explain, this AI stuff," or, sort of words to that effect. And I thought, yeah, sure, I could do that. So I went to a couple of the places, usually in New York, and they went great. There were great sessions. I would talk for hours because people would want me to talk for hours, and they'd ask me a bunch of questions about AI and apps, and I was very happy to be able to fill in some gaps for them. And then the more that I did those, the more I thought this is a really good way to communicate this. And because of my sort of specialized knowledge in the media and having dealt with many public relations folks over the years, I I knew I had very specific advice for them because I knew I had a really good sense of the workflows, the ethics, all the things that really are of concern to those professions. So I launched classes formally in early 2024. Those got pretty popular really quickly. And a lot of PR firms actually ended up reaching out to me for something a little more custom. You know, they liked the classes and they liked sort of the use cases I was going over with content creation and various other things. But they really wanted something more tailored to their work. So, you know, that began kind of more my sort of custom client business. And that's grown, and I've partnered with a few other people over the following months. And now we have that as a very strong sort of pillar of the business, which is to say, like, it's essentially kind of a hybrid between training and consulting with PR and communications firms to basically bridge them into this new era where AI is powering everything we do, and making sure they can compete and basically get more out of the resources that they have.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit, maybe bring a bit more clarity. So, you know, when you said PR firms needed you to help them with what they needed from AI, what did they identify as, let's say, the top 5 things that they needed or thought that they needed from AI?
Oh, good question. Yeah. So there's multiple use cases. I'll get into those in a second. The first thing, though, I would say that pretty much any firm needs, regardless of the industry, is a shift in mindset around AI. Because I think everyone's used AI at this point. Everyone kind of knows generally what it can do, at least out of the box. And everyone, in my view, starts off with a view of AI as kind of like almost like Santa Claus, right? Like, you ask it for something, give me a blog post, give me some social copy, give me an image, and it does it for you. And it's kind of magical, and it's great. And then the magic wears off pretty quickly because you realize, oh, this is sort of riddled with errors. It's not quite what I wanted. Oh, this image looks silly. And when you shift your mindset away from it just giving you a thing and you are collaborating on a thing, you know, that you adjust your expectations and your mindset so that you're not expecting perfection on the first prompt, and that the span of things that AI can help you with goes beyond just, you know, giving you a thing, an output, so to speak. Then that's a real unlock. That shift in mindset is key to really getting the most out of AI. When you see AI as a collaborator on the many projects that you do. So that's number one. And then when you get into PR specific use cases, there's a number that are predictable. So right off the bat, most people want to talk about content creation. And that spans everything from press releases to company marketing material to social copy. And so one is sort of figuring out the prompting around that to make sure you have the right, you're asking AI for the right things, and you're also asking the right AI for the right things, because there's obviously a lot of them. And then part of that is also like providing the context so that it has the right things, the specific data from you to do what it can do to the best of its ability, so that it gets you, like, instead of halfway to being done, it gets you more like 80 to 90% of the way being done. And, you know, I always emphasize it's never 100% because these things are not perfect systems. They hallucinate or get things wrong. Human in the loop is pretty crucial with any AI workflow. So content creation is a big one. I will say people are very interested in campaign-related things. So whether it is automating some of that content so that, say, you're sending out, whether it's pitches or social copy or whatever, being able to kind of like have that automatically go somewhere and then be stored in a database in terms of like whether it was successful or not. You know, that's a matter of pretty simple stuff these days. You used to have to go to engineering teams to like hook systems together. Now there's so many sort of no-code automation platforms. That's a good unlock in terms of like what you can do once you have like your output. And then there's sort of the reverse of that, which is like the media monitoring. So everyone's very interested in media monitoring. They actually, certainly PR firms everywhere spend a lot of money on big platforms that will do this for them to some extent. And I'm not saying out of the box AI can replace that kind of extensive platform, but elements of it can be. You know, you can actually essentially create your own micro version of one of these platforms in a limited way, and get you something that will maybe be very narrowly focused on a particular client or a campaign that doesn't necessarily do 800 different things. It does 2 or 3 different things. And this is kind of one of these interesting, empowering things about AI. If you have an aptitude to sort of building your own tools around your own workflows, you can really almost get a thin client, so to speak, of the software that you use every day that that might seem bloated and you think you're only using like 10% of the features. If you are only using 10% of the features, there's a good chance you might be able to replicate a good chunk of that on your own. Then there's some really interesting use cases that get into it's media training, and you can. I really like this one in particular because it gets at just how interactive AI the use of AI can be. So once you start using tools for voice and video, you can start to do some pretty impressive things with regard to having like an interview done, right? So you could actually have an AI interview you as an expert, and then challenge you or give you a softball or whatever. You can actually, it's all up to you what the style of the interview is. Evaluate the interview and give you pointers on how to handle a real one. And you can even craft these to be replicas or at least close to replicas of real interviewers or real journalists. You could even create like your own simulator that behaves like Wolf Blitzer, for example, right? Like based on some content that's out there. So that's a good one because that gets into sort of the interactivity of AI and how it's not just here's a prompt and give me a thing. It's much more involved. And then there's like all kinds of assistance on very narrow fields, and there's different tools that are better suited for one or the other. So whether you are doing sort of a campaign assistant, that might be done better by say like a Notebook LM, which that's Google's tool that is very grounded, so it's only getting information from the files you give it. Or you might want something that's more open, something that can access the internet. So maybe you have something that's more along the lines of a compliance advisor, right? So you can ask general Chat GPT for compliance advice, but it's going to be sort of hit and miss. And often when you're asking AI for help, you don't need the entire internet. In fact, you don't want it. You want it to be very, very focused on a particular area, and you want it to primarily rely on something very specific, and that could be, guidelines, areas of law, areas, specific reports or industry reports. And there are any number of ways to combine both files that you have with databases on the internet and limit it to that, so that you're not getting all the junk mixed in there, like some rando on Reddit talked about some compliance issue and that's no, you don't want that. You want the official stuff. There are ways to sort of do that, and it's not that hard once you sort of sit down and know the right tools.
Let me jump in here real quick on this, because one of the things that I know when we talked earlier that I found on your website that I think folks will love is that, and it's free, it's your 100 top AI prompts for PR pros. And the listeners can get a free copy of it from mediacopilot.ai. And it brings up the things that you really talked about. here's some of the things, some of the rules, to if you begin to using AI, setting word limits and set the tone to generate the best results, those kinds of things. And, some of the right verbs to use, or, if you want to refine your prompts and so forth like that, research prompts. This information is included from Media AI's website. I've used it, and my heavens, it really did help me move faster very quickly, because it's sort of fine-tuned and maybe more of a laser focus than a shotgun approach to it. So I just wanted to bring that to our listeners' attention, of the top 100 AI prompts from MediaCopilot.ai. So just wanted to make sure we got that in front of people.
Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out. It's a great list. I think it will unlock a lot of possibilities to you if you haven't prompted AI beyond sort of output-focused, out-of-the-box experience. It will get you thinking about context. It will get you thinking about the different areas that it can tap into and ways it can advise you. That's a great download. There's also some things you will learn in the classes I teach that are there's some specific prompts, but I think there are some more like broader rules about using AI, and some of them I've come up with fairly recently just from repeated use. And one of them is it's really interesting how when you tell AI not to do something, it kind of wants to do it, even more. It's one of these things scary about AI, that they're almost like think like us a little bit. Like if I told you right now, don't think of coffee, like what's the one thing you're going to think of?
Mm-hmm.
And AI sort of behaves that way too. So I think most people find this, that if you tell it not to do something, it almost tends to do it even more. So a tip I have about the use of AI broadly is it's really almost a tip borrowed from human interaction. Be more positive than negative. Like emphasize the things you want it to do. And it's not like never tell it what not to do, but put more emphasis on the opposite thing you want it to do, and repeat that more, so that it is more focused on that, as opposed to be just focusing on the thing you told it not to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you just say this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, it's just gonna want to do all that. So that's sort of an interesting unlock I've discovered on AI, that sort of de-emphasize the negative and amplify the positive.
And I think as I look through some of your materials, you probably describe it in here as hands-on mastery of AI tools. And I think that certainly helps people, because, mastering AI tools certainly makes the output, if you will, more specific to what your needs are, rather than a broad generalization of what you might be looking for.
Yeah, so that's really important in terms of the tools. And for the tooling, like we run the gamut. And so it's like there's very specific stuff and very general stuff. And depending on the audience, like for the public-facing classes that I put on, that they're sort of come one, come all, and anyone can buy a spot. And I will teach for either a day or sometimes they're over 6 weeks. But I try to emphasize the more general tools, because I don't necessarily want to lock people into a very specific platform from the get-go, right? So that said, there's a lot of broad tools, everything from ChatGPT to Claude to Perplexity. These are all very useful things. But when I do classes, I try to sort of emphasize those. But for the more consulting custom packages that we're doing for corporate comms teams, we can get very granular. There are tools out there that are very targeted on very specific PR functions. There is a tool out there, for example, that will pitch in an automated or semi-automated way podcasts. It's built specifically for podcasts, so that if you want to essentially pitch your client to appear on podcasts in a certain area, it is extremely good at finding those and finding the contact information of the people to reach out to, and then will essentially pitch you. And that's a crazy narrowly focused thing, right? If you think about it, like what is the call for that?
Let me just jump in there right quick, because right now most of my guests are actually coming from pitches. I have to ask them, well, how did you happen to find my podcast? Well, there are organizations that are set up to look for that deal specifically with podcasts and public relations podcasts, to be specific. So right now, I'll read what's coming, and if I like what it is I'm seeing, then I'll reach out to you and we'll go forward from there. But
yeah, and the thing is, it's not. I don't think it's. I think it's a fine tool. You know what I mean? Like that's like it's just using AI in this way that. That you might not expect, but yeah, that's a very specific application of this, right? And so you think about this. There are other tools that will pitch journalists in a very specific area. There are other tools that will the media training thing I mentioned will automate a lot of that and do it in a very sophisticated way, so that you are interacting with video avatars or voice avatars. And there are others that specialize in like list curation, and so we can talk about all of that. And I do some recommendations through the business I do. So it's all tailored to whoever the client is. Like what do you need? What are you most interested in? And we can sort of recommend a whole stack that usually is pretty affordable when you compare it to the big bloated software that I was kind of alluding to earlier.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that you mentioned in here, I think you basically touched on, is that the students will gain is that, they're data-driven insights where you can actually leverage AI to interpret real-time media trends and other things like that, so that there's, they'll know how to maybe format the messages or what particular media to go to, that kind of information. So the specificity is what I'm hearing is that there's a lot of specificity can be developed from this if you use it correctly.
For sure, yeah. The specificity is kind of the biggest unlock, right? So, like I say a lot about at the outset of a lot of my trainings, is that out of the box, AI has more to offer a novice that wants something passable than a professional who wants something good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's frankly why people come to me, because they're professionals and they want something good. And they want to figure out the best way to do that. And it's like, well, the way to upgrade your AI experience, number one, is like the AI should really know you. Yeah, of course you're not getting great results. You're just pinging some generic ChatGPT bot to do something that doesn't have the right context. So, step one is sort of building some assistance either in ChatGPT or some other platform that has the right context. And then once you sort of have the right context and the goals, it's like, oh, actually, in addition to context, I wanted to do something. And probably beyond just giving me, a piece of writing or an output, it's like I wanted to call a tool or a function. And it's like, okay. Then you can either hook that up, connect some wires with some tooling, or buy a tool, essentially, that has already done that and figured out a lot of the prompting as well. So that's the big advantage of a lot of these software platforms. And it's just that they've figured out the best prompting to get consistent results. They've got some method to connect wires, essentially, between things so that it can call functions and bring them into the middle of the process. And in the case of what you might call an agent, interpret that output that they get from these other things and do something with that. So, and that's all an agent is. It's sort of combining a bunch of these tools and then giving it the right instructions on what to do when it gets things from those tools. And then, the more you do that, the more you can sort of have it just do more of the work on its own. And the big trick there is sort of figuring out where to insert your human judgment, which is absolutely still needed, because when you start talking about hooking up tools and agents, people always start to get a little worried about, wait, what am I here for?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of existential dread in a lot of industries, PR and communications included. But there's absolutely a need at several stages in any workflow for humans to be in the loop. And there's certainly stages where AI is simply not called for. Like when you want that human authenticity, when the relationship is important. Yes, AI can get you close to, like, basically do a lot of things prior to that interaction, but you still got to do it as the human, because that's what we're doing here. That's who your customers are usually.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, as I go through that 100 plus program that you have for free, because I'm listening to the things how you help people. You suggest certain verbs that they can use, and how to refine their prompts by using certain words, such as edit or combine or synthesize or interpret for me, and even some research prompts, such as list the common challenges of, describe the target audience for, explain the article to a 5-year-old and with a link. All of those kinds of things I can see how people can get better output, if you will, from AI if the specificity is there that they're looking for.
Well, especially for your own customizations, like that one about, explain it to me like I'm 5, is a good example of understanding that you, as the user, are also an audience,
mm-hmm.
right? So the AI out of the box kind of doesn't know you from Adam. And the more you can tell it about yourself, the more it's going to give you stuff that is going to be useful to you. So there's a very underutilized feature in ChatGPT, for example, called custom instructions. And I often leave it, like I've been teaching it ever since I've started teaching AI, because it's been there for a while. And I've been tempted now and then over the years to kind of stop, because I figured everybody knows about it. But I find that people don't usually. People just kind of leave it untouched. And I'm like, oh, wow, no, this is a great way to just out of the box, go from out of the box to something that is much more tailored for you. And you can tell it anything you want to do in terms of like how you want it to respond. And so to think about you and what your comfort level is with certain language, and what sort of how you like explanations. You might like them longer or shorter depending on the context. But I also find it's a very useful place to kind of end run some of the annoying habits ChatGPT has, because it tends to be overeager. I think a lot of people, when they ask ChatGPT for something and you were expecting maybe 3 bullets, it gives you 20.
Yeah.
Or, it just keeps going and going
mm-hmm.
on something. And so you kind of have to tell it, limit your responses to, say, 200 words unless I ask for something longer. That's a good custom instruction. Another one I like to use is that if you ever use, if you've used ChatGPT for a while, you've noticed that you ask it for a thing. You're like, give me a recipe for an arugula salad. And it'll go like, okay, I'm going to do that recipe. Here's a good one. And it says, gives you the recipe. And it says, okay, I just gave you a recipe. Did you like that? And those sort of, I'm about to do something, I've just done the thing, kind of bookending comments start to get annoying after a while. And you can actually tell it to stop doing that. You can essentially go, stop self-referencing, don't explain what you're doing, just give me the thing I asked for. And then it'll stop. And it's a bit of a, I guess you might consider it an advanced move for ChatGPT, because I think people don't even notice those things until you're sort of using it all the time and you start to realize how annoying it is to have this stuff. But it's so responsive. I mean, you can tailor it in so many different ways. You can even tell it to be working like references to Narnia or something in every response, which is a nice trick I do when I'm showing off custom instructions, because it's very amusing to watch it sort of bring up things like Aslan and the White Witch or whatever in many responses.
One of the things I think we might want to do before we get too far down the road is to let people know how they can get in touch with you, because the information that you're providing here right now obviously a lot of folks have a need for it. So why don't you let them know how they can reach out to you and get involved in the program that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. They can always email me. My email is Pete, P-E-T-E, at mediacopilot.ai. It's all one word. That's the easiest way. I'm really accessible on LinkedIn. There all the time. And so you can reach me there. I'm on a few other social networks. I probably check them out a little less often, but you can reach out to me on any of those if you want to just Google my name. It's got a weird spelling. My last name is Pachal, but you should be able to find me pretty easily. And like I said, the best way is email. Second best is probably LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, Peter, let me say this, that you provided us with an awful lot of information on your program. Anything that you think we might, that you may have overlooked in providing us about the program?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize, even though I'm excited about the new thing that I have with my partners about doing things for PR teams and corporate comms teams, I teach and have classes for all levels. So I do a monthly class. It's live. It's only an hour. It's essentially an introduction to AI, but it's meant to give very practical advice and tips, like some of the stuff I've just talked about today, in a very short period of time, and very focused on PR and media. So we're talking about, content creation, media monitoring, assistants that are going to help you with those things, and how to sort of get more out of the tools you're probably using, which are usually ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity. Those are the most common ones, I think, in those professions. So that's an hour. It's a very affordable class. You can find it at mediacopilot.ai. And I also have longer programs in the fall, one for journalists and one for PR and comms. And those are more extensive. Those are going to be real workshopping 6-week courses. They're great. We see a lot of great feedback from them because they're really focused on changing the way you work, right? Mm-hmm. It's not just demos. Like, we have demos, they're great, but we will handhold you through building them into your own workflows to accelerate what you're doing. It's like a real course, and we have coaching, and we even have all of our students complete a project so that we will work with you to build a new workflow for yourself so that you're getting more out of AI. We see a lot of good response from that. We think it's really valuable. So we do a lot of classes in addition to the custom work we do with PR teams.
Mm-hmm. Well, Pete, let me say thank you so very much. That's the reason I called you, because when I read about Media Copilot, I said, wow, this is something that I think a lot of our listeners would have an interest in, because technology is moving so fast, just trying to keep up, not only with what's coming, but also effectively use what's already here. So the fact that Media Copilot is available, I'm glad that I had a chance to have you on, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners will take advantage of the fact that you've got something that they can use.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Peter. And I know a lot of people sort of spin a little bit of what you just said in a negative way, and they say, hey, you need to get skills or someone else is going to outcompete you. I like to sort of flip that a little bit, because I know probably a lot of people listening are thinking, oh, I'm really behind the curve and I don't know this stuff. Believe me, a lot of other people don't either. Mm-hmm. So, be assured in that you're not alone. But, there is a lot available to you, and I'm happy to be your guide if you would like me to. I'd be honored to be, honestly. To either we could start really slow on one of my classes, one of my monthly classes, and then if it's right, feel free to step up into one of the courses, or even work with your bigger team. But don't panic, I guess, is my main my main message there. You might feel like you're at the beginning and you're overwhelmed. A lot of other people feel that way, and it's just baby steps to the future.
Mm-hmm. Well, once again, let me say thank you so very much to Pete Pachal, who is the founder of Media Copilot. And again, don't forget to take advantage of that free piece of information, the 100 top AI prompts for PR pros. That's available at obviously at mediacopilot.ai. I've gotten a lot of mileage out of the few days I've had access to it. And again, thank you to Pete Patchell, our guest today, and also thank you, my listeners, for listening to the Public Relations Review podcast. We certainly would like to get a review from you, and also tell your friends about us. And we'll look forward to having you as a guest on the next edition of the Public Relations Review podcast.
This podcast is produced by Communication Strategies, an award-winning public relations and public affairs firm headquartered in Nashville, Tennessee. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, this is Peter Woolfolk. First, let me say thank you so much for being a listener. Now, I want to alert you to our shiny new podcast website located at podpage.com. However, you can go directly to the podcast site located at publicrelationsreviewpodcast.com. There, you can contact me through email. You can leave a voice message. You can leave a review. You can read an episode blog and frequently learn about the podcast guests. You might also want to suggest podcast topic ideas or even suggest a guest. You can also let me know if you would like to receive our podcast listener logo that you can post on your social media. So I look forward to hearing from you about our new podcast website. Thank you so much for listening to the Public Relations Review podcast, and have a great day.